I have ran into a pretty big problem. So anytime you get on the throttle, it literally pulls the suspension together. I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do, and hopefully on the next video I release, I'll have something figured out.
3 days later.
I was having issues with the suspension and the chain, having too much slack introduced. So I've been doing a little redesigning, and here's what I've come up with. I moved the pivot point right there used to be up here. Now it's down lower below the center of the axle, which is good. I've also moved that up. I've added another tab. So right now, as the axle comes back, it actually rolls back, which, moves the axle further back, which takes up for the slack introduced, as it comes up. So it seems to be semi-promising. Right now, at ride height, when you spread the chains, it's looking at 6 inches, and then when it's fully compressed, it's at 7 1/4. So technically, I think that could work. I don't know. I really don't want to drive this and then have to tear it apart again. So I'm gonna try and move this bar, this top link up even more, but I can only move it up another 1/2 inch or so because you see the frame curves in, so that's gonna limit me on that. But other than that, guys, I think it's probably gonna work out, I would imagine. And if it doesn't, one solution I've come up with, because since I already have all this work done, not that I want to be, obviously you don't want to have to destroy what you've done, but that doesn't make an excuse for not doing it right. But with that, there is so much stuff in the way, and there's so little options. There's a reason I went where I went, because that was like one of the best options at the time, I thought. Obviously, it probably isn't, but there's not a whole lot of options out here. So that's why I'm leaning towards going to an independent rear suspension. Now, this is only if this completely fails and I can't make something work that has a somewhat easy solution. I'm feeling fairly confident about this. Unfortunately, though, if this does fail, it's gonna really suck. I'm still giving this suspension type everything it's got before I completely give up on it. So that's just a little update. I know I haven't been filming a whole lot of it because it's more of improvements on the existing build. I showed the build, and I'll cover it, but I'm not really feeling like it's necessarily film, and it's been a pain to film. This weekend, this is the end of a weekend, Sunday night, and it's been 105 degrees this entire weekend. So also, right now, I think the video quality has gone down because my phone is actually overheating right now. Other than that, guys, I think that's it. I'll get you guys caught up, hopefully, when this works or doesn't work. I think it's going to work. Fingers crossed, guys. I've been running it for a little while, guys, after all the suspension changes, and so far, so good. Haven't lost the chain. I've been real hard on it, harder than I've ever been on it, and she's doing great. So right now, I'm trying to make up some front fender, and here's what I have come up with so far. Is this little piece. It's an awkward looking piece, but when you bend it, it fits right in there perfect. So I'm going to get this traced out on this sheet metal and then cut out. After going back to edit, guys, I actually lost a bunch of footage of trying to make these front inner fender liners. Here's the second one that goes on this side. The other one is over there on the table. And unfortunately, guys, I just lost the footage. My phone got full of storage, and it just kept on filming, didn't let me know, and so I lost it all. So sorry about that. I also got these LED lights mounted. Nothing a whole lot to them. I just made up some quick brackets and mounted it to them. But for the most part, guys, right now I'm getting ready to make the same little tabs that I made earlier, to mount the inner fender liners. So I'm in the process of doing that. I'll make sure that this actually gets filmed and that you guys get the rest. We're also going to put a metal plate over that and maybe a little bit over the carburetor too, just to clean it up a little bit and make it look a little better. Just got the tabs on this side tacked in. You can see a couple of them. Unfortunately, the bottom one actually broke off that tack. I didn't get it very good because it was a tricky angle. So I got to redo that one. But for the meantime, while that's cooling down, I'm going to make the shield that comes over this. And what it's going to do is it's going to go back to the seat and then lean up towards that angle iron right there. So it's going to be at an upward angle, so it clears that scoop right there. And luckily enough, I was able to find a piece of cardboard, and what I'm going to do is, since it's at an angle, I'm going to fold down the sides at an angle too to take care of that gap, that's going to get created. As you can see, we got this on there pretty nice. Of course, it's overlapping on this area. That's okay because that's going to get bent over for that gap right there. So that's going to get folded over, and then that'll take care of all that gap. I'm going to go ahead and get this traced out on metal. Here's how I'm planning to bend this. I just got a piece of angle iron clamped to my table outside. It's about the straightest edge I could find on a good, nice, solid table. And I got those two mallets over there to help me do some convincing if I need it. I don't really know what I'm doing, guys, so just bear with me, and hopefully this turns out good. Went and grabbed the biggest hammer I could find. I'm just joking. See if I can fix this. Yeah, look at that, guys. Not too bad. There it is. I think it looks pretty good. Now, for fastening it down, two self-tappers right in there. I know they're self-tappers, and in my opinion, that does kind of add like a, I don't know, like, is it that really good a quality? Kind of cheesy. But I actually don't think it'll turn out, I don't think it turned out that bad. It's going into real thick metal in there. Not real thick, but at least 1/16 of an inch, so it's not like they're going to strip out too easy. And this is loose up here, but unless that rattles like crazy, I might just leave it, because just having to undo that will make it super easy to access everything under there. So I'm thinking about possibly just leaving those two. Now, of course, if it rattles, I'll change something and probably add 2 more screws up the top. But for now, I think that'll work. I want to go ahead and get this one fender back on. Well, finish welding it and get it on. And unfortunately, I can't really start on that side until I get some help from my dad, because it's kind of a 2-person job, and it's pretty hard to do just by 1 person. There's that fender well complete. Other than it looks like I'll have to do a little bit of trimming up there for the sprocket to clear. And if you come over here to the other side, I actually got these tacked in and welded. So now I can get that fender bolted on. And yep, it's coming along. Right now, what I got to do next is, it's the end of the day though, but what I'll do tomorrow is I got to make a chain guard to go in there, and hopefully I can complete my four-wheel drive system. And then this thing should be done essentially, other than paint, of course. So I'll keep on, driving it and testing things out and making sure that nothing breaks. I know I'm just about through with my first tank, so that's good news. And I have 2 more tanks of premix after that one that I got to run through this machine before it's just the oil injection. And yep, it's really coming together. So hopefully this thing doesn't have too many more breakdowns, and it's gonna be time to strip it down and paint it. It's the next day, and I've got the middle chain on, got them both tensioned, and here's what I've come up with for the chain guard. So it's got 2 nuts welded right there, and it's gonna sit, in there, and then you'll run a bolt up through that expanded metal, and of course it'll have a washer, and then it'll just pinch it down and hold it in place. Pretty simple, but pretty effective. I've ran this thing and tested the chain guard. It works pretty well. Unfortunately, since I had let this chain soak in oil for so many days, I never dried it out. I forgot to, and it flung oil everywhere up on there, including my leg. So now that it's completely dry, I'm gonna bend that chain guard in more to make it so any remaining oil doesn't fling. But yeah, it just coated my transmission and then everything. This is all soaked in oil, and there's a puddle after it's sitting. That's just all from the chain. But other than that, right now what I need to start working on is making a cover for the sprocket. You can see more of the oil. So it needs to come out and then cover that chain, so if I go in tall grass and everything, the sprocket isn't taking, that chain isn't getting all the nasty crap in it. So here's what I've come up with. I simply just took a piece of metal, bent it 90 degrees. You can kind of see it there. You can see how it's 90. And then I just welded it there. Pretty thin metal, but my wig welder goes down enough. And when I turn the wheel all the way in, we're gonna be pushing about a 1/4 inch of clearance. Hopefully that's okay. I guess worst comes to worst, it rips the fender. That's about it though. I don't think I'll have a problem because that's at full lock, and the chances of the suspension compressing much at full lock is gonna be rare. The only time I can see it is if I was braking as I was turning real hard, which still I wouldn't do often. But yep, pretty simple and pretty effective, just like the chain guard. Now, I did move the chain guard in a little bit more to cover more of that chain, so I'm not throwing, whatever oil it does throw, hopefully it doesn't make it up to me this time. Later that week, I decided that I wanted to drive my four-wheeler to school, since my school isn't too far from our house, and I can take the dirt roads to get there. I thought that this would be a perfect opportunity to show off my four-wheeler to my friends, and to also test out and see how reliable my four-wheeler is. Everything went fine on the way to school. Unfortunately, on the way back, I was driving and it just randomly shut off. This was not too uncommon since it had shut off before on me, and usually it was just a fuel delivery issue. However, this time it fired right back up, but when it did, it made a terrible grinding sound coming from the pull start. When I went to pull on the pull start cord, all that came out was 4 inches of rope, and it had been chewed off. I also noticed that there seemed to be some resistance in the engine when cranking over, and that it wouldn't stay running, it would always die. So right away I knew that I wasn't going to make it home, and I was about 5 miles from home at the time. So I called up my neighbor. He was nice enough to come down, pick me up, and then I was able to get our truck and trailer and loaded my four-wheeler up. That's where this picture comes from. And then that leads me to where I'm about to show you when I got it back to the house and I tore it apart later that night. We got her in the shop, and it's time to tear this thing apart. But before I do that, I want to give you a quick update on the situation and what the future plans are. So I originally had planned to get this thing entered into the parade and car show of our local town's fall festival that they do every year. Well, unfortunately, I'm just not going to be able to make that deadline. So I'm going to just leave it unpainted and continue running it, get it, of course, operable, but as soon as she's running, we're going to just test her all year long, and then we'll paint her next year during the summer. So that way, when it's time for the car show, she is in her best condition, all pristine, no paint chips, no oil, no nothing, just clean. So that's what's going on. I know you guys may not want to wait that long to see her get painted, and I don't really want to either. But after putting some thought into it, that's just going to be the best thing to do, is to wait and put it off. I really wanted to make it, and have her done for this year's fall festival, but that's just not going to happen. But let's tear this thing apart and figure out why she left me stranded on the side of the road. Something's happening. Oh boy. Yeah, that's not ideal. Right up in here, if I can even get it, right tucked up in there is the little dog tooth that engages. She's nice and shiny. There's a spring down here. Just dropped it. I'm trying to remember what that's to. Obviously to the pull start. Can't remember what bit. Oh! Well, that is not good at all, guys. That's not supposed to have a big hole in it. After looking at it further, I think I should take this flywheel off, make sure that there's not too many metal, make sure there's not a whole lot of metal shavings on the flywheel magnets, make sure that those are okay. I also have noticed that right here, that bolt may have possibly come off or come loose somehow. I mean, it's completely jammed in there right now. And I'm not sure exactly what went wrong besides that bolt coming loose, if that really was the culprit. I have a couple things I need to do. I need to replace the bushings for the starter bendix in here. Other than that, I think this should be a pretty simple and easy fix. A quick tip if you're working on these engines. One guy told me that you should use anaerobic sealant around here instead of gasket maker. It'll help it come off easier, and as you guys saw, I pulled those two bolts off and she came right off. Here's one more look inside of this. You can see there's just metal shavings everywhere. It's been a little while since I last filmed. I've been just fixing little itty bitty things, trying to get this thing ready for the fall festival parade that my local town is hosting. And I've worked on the front shocks, replaced some bushings there. I replaced A-arm front bushings. I've also adjusted the shock location. I had it right there. I'm moving it up to the A-arm. I'm moving it up to the rear link. I'm also going to be just making sure the chain is tensioned right now and adjusting my track tracking to make sure that it dries nice and straight. It was a little off before, not much, just a little bit. I also have carburetor jets coming in the mail soon, so I'm glad to be getting those, and hopefully this thing can finally be running right. I put the case back on just without the recoil start. That's all. And I've also taken the exhaust off. As you can see, it's setting over on the table, and I'm gonna wrap it in some heat tape, which I got setting here. Anyhow, part 3 is getting a little longer than it really needs to be, so next time you see this thing, she'll be in the parade. It was even locked. Well, guys, that was a hitch malfunction is what I've determined it to be. I've rehooked it up and tested it. I had it exactly set up like this, guys. It looked identical. I had the safety chains, even this pin in. Everything was the same. I think what happened is the mechanism that pinches up against the ball was kind of frozen. The spring that it has didn't push it back out, I guess. And somehow I was able to lock this down even though it wasn't fully engaged. This isn't my first time hooking up a trailer. I should also mention, just to give myself credit, definitely some user error, of course, but I think it had to do with just how the hitch got hung up. But I went ahead, I put the jack down and lifted up I didn't lift the truck off the ground, but I, took weight off of the suspension with the trailer jack just to make sure that it's hooked up good so it doesn't come unhooked going down the road. Definitely a little scary, guys. It's unfortunate, too, because I put a dent in the truck. You can see it right there. It chipped the paint. Pretty disappointed. Have to break that news to my dad, so wish me some luck. But definitely, I was a little scared there for a second that something was wrong with the hitch. But let's try it again. The parade was a blast, and I ended up winning 3rd place overall for the best entry. After that, I drove my 4-wheeler back into town and parked it by some of the vendors and talked to some of the people who had questions about it and just got to show off my build in general. It was real neat to be able to show it off to people and actually have some appreciation for the work I'd done. Next up, though, is one of the things I was most excited for that day, and that was the ATV rodeo, which I haven't told you guys about. I had the option to enter it into pole bending and or barrel racing. I decided to just stick with barrel racing, and I got put in the utility class. I only had 2 other people in my class, and here are the 2 runs that I did.
Now we need Silas and Even online. Silas and Even online. Liam and Adam on deck. Yeah. I don't think you'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I think it'll be worse, but yeah, he's not getting a good turn.
All right, Liam.
I lost both my rounds, and this was mainly caused by the four-wheeler not turning that well. The rear end just pushed the front end straight, and it didn't want to get around those barrels very tightly. Right now, I am currently working on a solution to fix that, so next year I can go out there and win them all. Well, there you have it, guys. This is the final video on my build. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did. This thing was really just a dream come true. Of course, it's not quite done. I can't wait till next year when this thing's gonna be painted and completely finished. I still have things to fix, like my speedometer and a couple other minor things. But for the most part, guys, she is done. And it's so nice to have this wrapped up. And I'm just so excited that I was able to make this project happen. So, again, huge thanks to you guys for sticking through this far and watching. And hope you enjoyed. Consider subscribing for more content and future updates on this.